We are told that nations go to war for freedom. We are told they fight for democracy, for God, or for self-defense. We are shown flags waving and soldiers marching. We are asked to pick a side. But what if I told you that for the last 500 years, almost every major conflict was actually a business transaction? What if the NIMBYs you see on the news are just the overhead costs of a much larger calculation? General Smedley Butler, a two-time Medal of Honor recipient, said it best in 1935. He didn't call war a glory. He called it a racket. A racket is best described as something that is not what it seems to the majority of the people. Only a small inside group knows what it is really about. And what it is about ... is liquidity. Welcome to Economic Chronicler. Today, we are going to strip away the propaganda, ignore the politics, and follow the money to answer the most dangerous question in history. Why do we really fight? To understand war, you have to stop thinking like a patriot and start thinking like an accountant. In economics, there is a terrifying concept called the crisis of overproduction. It happens when a nation becomes too efficient. Your factories are producing more steel, more oil, and more cars than your own people can buy. The warehouses are full, the prices are dropping, profits are vanishing. When this happens, a nation has two choices. Choice A, you distribute the wealth to your own people so they can afford to buy the goods. This is unpopular with the ruling elite. Choice B, you find a new market. You find a place that needs your steel and your oil, or you find a place that you can force to buy it. This is the economic engine of imperialism. Look at the Opium Wars in the 19th century. We are taught this was a diplomatic dispute. It wasn't. It was a trade imbalance. Great Britain was buying millions of pounds of tea from China, but China didn't want to buy anything from Britain. Britain was bleeding silver. They were going broke. So the British Empire didn't send diplomats. They sent gunboats. They forced China to open its ports and, crucially, forced them to accept British opium as payment. They didn't fight for freedom of trade. They fought to fix their balance sheet. They turned a nation of addicts into a captive market to save the British pound. War is the ultimate tool for opening a closed market. It is the sledgehammer of capitalism. Now, let's fast forward to the modern era. The stakes have changed. We aren't just fighting for markets anymore. We are fighting for the very definition of money. If you want to understand the wars of the 21st century, you have to understand one thing, the reserve currency. Since 1944, the US dollar has been the king. But in the 1970s, it became the petrodollar. The deal was simple. The US protects Saudi Arabia militarily. In exchange, Saudi Arabia and OPEC agrees to sell oil only in US dollars. This means if France, Japan, or Brazil wants energy, they must first buy US dollars. This creates an artificial, permanent demand for American currency. It allows the US to print money without inflation destroying the economy, because the world needs those dollars to keep the lights on. But what happens when a country tries to break that deal? In 2000, Saddam Hussein announced Iraq would start selling its oil in euros, not dollars. This was a direct attack on the Petrodollar System. It would have devalued the American currency overnight. 3 years later, the U.S. invaded. We were told it was about weapons of mass destruction. Those weapons were never found, but the oil sales? They were switched back to dollars immediately after the invasion. Then look at Libya in 2011. Muammar Gaddafi had a plan to create a gold-backed African currency, the gold dinar. He wanted to unite the African economies and sell their oil for gold, bypassing the US dollar and the French franc. Hillary Clinton's leaked emails later confirmed this. The emails didn't talk about saving civilians. They talked about the threat Gaddafi's gold posed to the French central bank and the US dollar. Shortly after, NATO intervened, Gaddafi was killed, and the gold dinar plan died with him. Coincidence? In the world of high finance, there are no coincidences. There are only liabilities and assets. And if you threaten the asset of the global reserve currency, You become a liability. But there is a darker side to this. Sometimes the goal of war isn't to win. Sometimes the goal is just to fight. War is the only activity where destruction creates GDP. Think about it. If you build a school, it lasts for 50 years. You don't need to build another one for a long time. That's bad for business. But a missile? A missile is designed to explode. It costs $2 million to build, and it is gone in seconds. Once it explodes, you have to buy another one. This is what President Dwight D. Eisenhower warned us about in 1961. He called it the military-industrial complex. When a government spends $100 billion on a war, that money doesn't disappear. It goes somewhere. It goes into the accounts of defense contractors, logistics companies, and private mercenaries. During the war in Afghanistan, shares of major defense contractors outperformed the stock market by 58%. While the economy crashed in 2008, the war economy was booming. Consider the cost-plus contract. In a normal business, if you are inefficient, you lose money. In the defense industry, contracts are often cost-plus. This means the government pays for all your costs plus a guaranteed percentage of profit. The more you spend, the more you make. There's no economic incentive to end the war quickly. A short war is a missed opportunity. A forever war is a guaranteed revenue stream. It transfers wealth from the tax-paying public to private shareholders. It is a wealth extraction machine disguised as patriotism. Finally, we have the most ancient economic reason of all, theft. We like to think we are civilized. We don't plunder anymore. We liberate. But look at the map of global conflicts and overlay it with a map of natural resources. They are the same map. Why is the Congo in a state of perpetual war? It's not because the people there are naturally violent. It's because the Congo sits on $24 trillion worth of minerals, cobalt for your iPhone, coltan for your laptop, copper for the green energy revolution. If the Congo were stable and strong, they would charge the world market price for those resources. They would be the richest nation on earth. But because they are at war, the resources are smuggled out cheap by warlords and sold to multinational corporations for pennies on the dollar. Chaos keeps prices low. This is the resource curse. If you have what the world needs, but you aren't strong enough to defend it, your liberation is inevitable. We are seeing this now in the rush for the Arctic. As the ice melts, new shipping lanes and oil reserves are opening up. And suddenly we see NATO and Russia moving troops to the north. They aren't going there for the view. They are going there because the Arctic is the next great real estate deal. So why do countries go to war? They don't go to war because they hate each other. The average person in Ohio has no reason to kill the average person in Moscow or Beijing. They go to war because the economic system requires expansion. They go to war to defend the currency that gives them power. They go to war because destruction is profitable for the few who build the bombs. And they go to war because it is cheaper to steal resources than to buy them. War is a failure of humanity, but it is a success of the ledger. It is the most profitable business sector in history. The next time you see a conflict erupt on the news, don't ask who are the good guys. Ask who is getting paid. Ask what currency is the oil being sold in. Ask who rebuilds the cities after they are destroyed. When you follow the money, the fog of war lifts and you see the cold, hard machinery of the world clearly for the first time. I'm the Economic Chronicler. History is written by the victors, but the bills are paid by you. Subscribe, and let's keep following the money.